For the longest, I used to think that I wasn't smart enough to be a software engineer. And I felt like I got into my position only through luck, never through anything of my own merit. I worked twice as hard as everybody else, and I felt like I only saw half of the result. And then I realized I was fighting the wrong battle. My first job out of college was basically across the country. And this is the first time I'm not gonna say left the state, but this is the first time, like, yeah, I didn't commute. For college, I remained local, and this was the only job opportunity that seemed promising, right? They offered it to me, and I was like, you know what? No one else is offering me anything, so I'm gonna move across the country from Jersey to Texas. At this point, I didn't have any family out here, I didn't have any friends out here, it was just me. And I had like this chip on my shoulder, like, I can't fail. I basically need to prove to myself and others that I can stand on my own 2 feet, like I'm ready for the world. And growing up, like I always heard you have to be twice as better to get half the result. And that was just like the mindset that I was in. So like I couldn't fail. I couldn't let myself down. I couldn't let my family down. At work, it felt like everyone else just got it. Meetings would go over my head. I would stay late, trying to figure out how does this application work? How does this component work? How does this thing work? And, it's really because I felt like me asking for help would be me admitting to my failure. It would be me, basically proving that it was luck. It wasn't on my own merit. I don't have the brains to be here. And I kind of got handed this position. And, as time went on, I got a bit more confident and doing the work, asking good questions, not dumb questions, even though everybody always says no question is dumb. But what ended up happening is at some point I was trying to go to another team and I didn't get the position. And the reason I didn't get position from what I heard through the grapevines. That is because I require handholding. And honestly, man, it really messed me up. It messed me up really good because for me, I kind of was like the spiraling. It's like, do I require handholding? Nah, I don't require handholding. I just needed help. I need help. These things aren't clicking for me. They aren't making sense. Like I know I'm smart, but it's just not making sense to me. And it was just really annoying because it's like I already have that battle inside of me to go above and beyond and not look dumb and not look stupid and to ask all the right questions and to ask sophisticated, smart, intellectual questions. But then to find out that first job out of college, first team I ever been on, the reason why I can't go to another team is because they feel like they would need to baby me. So it's better that I just remain on a team that, in my opinion, I wasn't growing on. Like I said, it affected me, but the truth was, I wasn't dumb. I just hadn't figured out how I needed to learn, what I needed to do for things to make sense to me. And, owning that I was in fact different. I was so afraid of somebody finding out that I was different because I didn't want them to find out that I should not be there. Classic example of imposter syndrome. So a little bit about me. I basically have been programming since 2011. I took a computer science class in high school and I basically was doing Java at that point. And, I was just like, I realized I want to do this for the rest of my life, right? And I was, let's say, like a C plus, B minus student at that point. Wrapped up high school, did the AP test, didn't do that well enough to get the credits to transfer over to college. Then I went to college and I kind of just did what we are taught to do. Pass tests. Didn't learn anything. Couldn't figure out why I couldn't learn anything. But all I knew was I know how to pass tests because at the end of the day, if I pass a test, I'll get good grades. I'll feel successful and my family will be proud of me because I'm getting good grades. And, through some circumstances, I'll save you the long-winded story, but I ended up taking a web development class. And at that point, that's when everything started to click. For me, it was just like, man, I could make this change in the HTML on this page. I could change the color of this button, and within seconds I could see it. And now it is just like, man, I'm just like zoned in, like I'm locked in, I'm focused. I remember, I want to say like that first week of me doing like my first project for that web development class, I easily put in 40 hours, legit 40 hours on Team Treehouse, just learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I'm like, I'm going to be that guy. And at that point, things started flowing a lot easier for me. Like things that I shied away from, or things that would make my eyes glaze over, things that I was just like afraid of or felt like I couldn't learn, they started clicking for me. Like I taught myself how to use Git, and it's like, oh wow, it's not as bad as I thought. But it was just kind of like I needed those small wins in order to feel like more confident that I could be a software engineer. I ended up getting like two internships. Mind you, this is in my last 2 or 3 semesters of college. So mind you, I end up doing 5 years. So that's what, 10 semesters? My last three, that's when I started finding myself. And yeah, it gave me the confidence. I ended up going to a NSBE conference. One and only time that I ever went to a conference. At this point, it was just like now or never. I'm about to graduate. I need to get a job. I need to find something. Everybody's always talking about this, but I was always like a loner, lone wolf. Like, I had my little circle, but when it came to school, it was just like I go do my work, go home. That's it. I commuted, so I went straight home when class was over. I, went to my job when I needed to go. But outside of that, like I wasn't really into the socials. And the one time I go to Nesby, I'm the type of person that doesn't really like weigh my options. And it's like, if somebody looks at me and it's like, hey, here's an opportunity. Like I don't go over there like, well, what about this other opportunity? It's like, oh, this is the best I got, so I'm moving forward with it. So first job out of college, I was doing Java, and at that point, I was just doing it, like I said, same mindset of how I got to college. It's like I go there, I do my work, I go home. I go to work, I do my work, I go home. And it was just like now I'm around other people. I'm not doing the thing that I just found out that I loved. I'm back to Java again. Java didn't get me any internships. Java already had my confidence down in the dumps because, I failed the interview trying to go to UPS. I failed the interview. Something now I could look back and say it was so simple, but it was like, what's the difference between method overloading and method overriding? And for me, I never learned the terms, the syntax, all that kind of stuff. Like I saw it visually in my head. If you walk me through it, like so I could like better understand. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what this is. That's when you have multiple arguments, but the same, function name, so on and so forth. I was very visual, but again, never got an internship because of Java. Never did anything up until that point. It was always just regular, job, nothing related to my career. And now I'm at this big company with a lot of people who I felt were a lot smarter than me, and I was struggling. And so, at that point, I didn't have any AI or anything, and I'm actually fortunate I didn't. But, trying to read documentation, but I can't read it. I'm trying to focus and I'm like falling asleep. Like, the meetings, they're going over my head. Like, I'm like, I'm not bored. I'm interested in information, but it's just like, man, can y'all wrap it up? Like, I need to just get back to my desk. Like, I need to go for a walk. Like, it was just like so many different things. And I'm like, beating myself up over it because I'm like, when I look around, I don't see anybody else yawning. I don't see anybody else struggling with this information. They're asking clarifying questions. They're not afraid to get down into it. Again, over the course of, I would say, like me starting my career, I've been getting feedback that I wasn't aggressive enough. I wasn't, forward enough. I wasn't confident enough. And it's like I'm already questioning these things. And then to hear somebody confirm it, it just like doubles down. And I didn't realize, but when I start beating myself up and saying that I'm not, good enough, and then somebody confirms it, like that's all I'm gonna be focused on. I'm only gonna be focused on not being good enough. And guess what? I wasn't good enough because that's all I could focus on, right? And it just kind of really got to a point where I just kept trying. I just kept, what they say about insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's more or less what I was doing. I was driving myself insane every day. It just like felt like, I'm just trying to catch up. Like everyone knew the direction. Everybody had a map except for me. And it's just like, bro, what the hell is going on? What is wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Why am I struggling with this material and nobody else is? People are explaining it to me like in plain English. It's like, what's the first three letters of the alphabet? A, B, C. So simple, right? And I'm just like, so B comes after C? How is that possible? Why is it like that? And it's just like, bruh, like you should know this. This elementary, right? Like I'm oversimplifying it, but that's what it felt like to me. That's the feelings that I had. Is just like, bruh, I should know this. Like, your ABCs, right? Like, and it's like, if I'm in my job and these are my ABCs, like, I should know it. But here we are. It honestly just became like really, really exhausting. And like I had mentioned before, at this point, I'm just doing my job, going home, coming back. And now I'm starting to feel like I'm not growing, but because this is my first job, it's like I don't know if I'm not growing. I don't know if this is the right thing. I don't have nobody to talk to know if what I'm doing is right. Are my feelings valid? Like, should I be feeling this way? Should I not be feeling this way? Should I be looking for another job? I don't know, right? Like for me growing up, I always just heard parents, grandparents just like, I got it done. I had to provide, I had to put food on the table, I got it done. I didn't care about, quality of life. Like that's kind of like sentiment that I got was just like, I just had to get it done. If I didn't get it done, you did not eat. And I'm just like, well, I guess I got to get it done. And it got to a point, like I said, tried to apply to another team. They weren't having me. And, I applied to another team. They also didn't have me. And then I heard feedback from like that last team that I require handholding. At this point, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to start applying to other jobs. Ended up applying, bombed. When I tell you, I did like the first two coding questions. And to this day, I hate coding interviews. But I did the coding questions. It was like, self-time. You do it at your own pace. So in my head, I could take as long as I want. But did it. And the third question, I literally sat there for like 8 hours. Sat at my desk for 8 hours straight. And lo and behold, that wasn't good enough for the hiring manager. And basically, after talking to him, like he was just like super cool. And he basically came back and was just like, unfortunately, we're not gonna move forward with you. And I was just like devastated. And then like later on that week, he like ended up calling me back and was just like, yo, I see a lot of potential in you and I've been thinking about it and it doesn't make sense for me to pass up on you if you're not going to grow in 6 months at your current company in your current role and expect, you to do better or to have different results. So he basically was just like, look, we can't hire you at a level two. We could hire you as a level one. And I mean, if I'm being honest with you, like their level one was making more than my level two, so I would have been dumb to not take that position. I did not care about my level. Like you could promote me to customer for all I cared, as long as you paid me. But it was just like that in itself was a confidence booster because it's like after just beating up myself and then having, external, I guess, invalidation that I wasn't good enough. Like this was like that moment of like, all right, someone believes in me and I can grow. Like I can do stuff, right? So I joined this company. I was doing Ruby on Rails. Again, back end stuff, but it's like it's a new company. I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to grow. And I want to say for a year or so, I was just doing that. But again, still feeling the same way, but it's a new company, right? People aren't expecting you to know everything, but still I'm beating myself up. And it's just like, bro, I don't understand Ruby. I don't understand Rails. I'm trying to join a book club and I don't do the book club stuff. I feel like I'm falling behind. I'm like, you know what? I can't do the book club. And it was just like so many different things. Just like, again, I'm falling behind. Again, I'm starting to beat myself up. Again, I'm having those destructive conversations. And it basically got to a point where fortunately, it got to a point where on the team there was front end project and nobody wanted to do them except for me. Like the project will come up and it's like, hey, we got to implement this API, but we also need a front end component to go along with it. And I'm like, please put me in, coach. Put me in, coach. I know how to do this. Nobody else wants to do it. Let me do it. Like, let me do it. Like, let me prove myself. Please, like, I'm begging you, let me prove myself. Like, I am actually valuable. Just let me prove myself. And like, I would do them again, and then I'll go back to Ruby. I'll do the front end project, I'll go back to Ruby. And it basically got to a point where my team lead and like my skip level manager, because at that time I didn't have a manager, but they were like, I told them, I was like, I really love doing front end development. And they once again gave me an opportunity to me, to prove myself, but they gave me an opportunity to do the thing that I really like. And they were like, well, if you really enjoy doing front end development, own it. Is that what you want to do? And like for the first time, I'm like in my life, like somebody's giving me a chance to tell you what I want to do. This is a setup, but I'm gonna go with it. Like, yeah, put me in. Like, let me do this thing. And like I lean all the way in. Like I was just making the front end code a better place. Like obviously at that time, still pretty young in my career. So, I look back at the code and I mean we all do it, where you look back at the code and it's just like, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. But this is like the first time that the team is looking to me for answers for questions. And it's crazy how that change in confidence when you start having those wins where it's like, I want to be a senior engineer. Oh man, I didn't get that promotion. I'm beating myself up for it. But now it's like, I'm not even thinking about being a senior engineer anymore. I'm thinking, well, how do I make this thing better to work in? And through me improving the app, people are starting to look at me as a senior engineer. And, it kind of just got to a point where I stopped, I won't say stop like completely, but I started believing in myself because people were believing in me. And, when I think about it, like, I don't think I was behind. I was just really just misaligned. And, now, like at this point, I'm more confident. I'm asking people what I want. Now I'm starting to get mentorship. I'm like getting mentoring from other people. Like they were trying to pilot that, but that ended. And now I'm like going to people who I deem to be, smarter than myself, but not in a bad connotation. I was like, I want to surround myself with the people I want to be like. And, I'm speaking to a senior engineer and we're sitting down and we're kind of just talking about like values. Like, what do you value? Like, what are you passionate about? And it's just like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. It's always hard to answer those kind of questions, like especially like when somebody just comes up to you and it's just like, well, who are you? What do you like? You know how it is. Like your brain shuts down and it's just like, I have no idea who I am. I know my name. It's Green, but I had some cereal this morning, and besides that, it's like I don't know who I am. I don't know what my passions are. I just do my job. I go home and I come back in the morning, and it's just like I'm like at the end of the day, what matters to me is just being the person that I didn't have early in my career, and I'm like. For me, I always felt like things would go over my head. Things would, just miss me because they were too complicated or people didn't understand how to explain it or explain it to me. And I'm like, I want to be that person for the next Kareem, for the next guy that comes in, or even for myself, because, with how things go, companies are constantly trying to put out the next new feature, trying to get the next dollar. Tech debt is building up, it's going crazy, it's going stupid. In 6 months, the thing that I wrote, half a year ago, I don't know what that is. You asked me to write that. I tried to tell you that it's a piece of crap, and it's like just get it done. I got it done. I went home and I came back to work and I did the next feature. Like, it got to that point and it's just like, well, in the event that that happens, which it continues to happen, I want to make sure that the code is good enough so that way if I do need to make some changes to it, I can. I like, was telling him that and I ended up saying like I just really enjoy improving developer experience. And he told me to own it. And once again, it's like, all right, if somebody believes in me, I'm going to own it. And I owned it. And I kept owning it. And I kept pushing for a better developer experience. I kept, speaking to why this is greatly needed, for people that are like me. But, I've always put it in a broader sense. At that point, I was just learning that I had ADHD. All the stuff in my life at that point started making sense. Why I was the way I was, why I did need handholding. That burned me up so bad until I understood like it is what it is. I have ADHD. I need help. I need to ask for help. Things aren't going to click as quickly for me. Reading documentation sucks because I get bored easily. My brain just says, hey, bro, you're not finishing that sentence. And guess what? I'm not going to finish that sentence. But as I went through all of that and like learn more about myself, I learned that one, I was always smart enough. I just learned differently. I always had the abilities to grow. I just needed to be in an environment that enabled me to grow. And like, if I could tell myself, if I could go back in time, I would get diagnosed a lot sooner. If I could tell myself anything, but it's just like focus on the things that bring you happiness. Stop trying to do like what you think will make everybody else happy because making everybody else happy does absolutely nothing for you.